Abracadabra. Boom. Abracadabra. Boom. Hold on one second. Well, hey there, sober ladies. Thank you so much for joining me today for the Confident Sober Women podcast. And I am so excited to be here today with my friend Ranae. And we're going to have an amazing conversation about some different kinds of things that maybe you're used to hearing, but certainly applicable to all of our lives. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Ranae, let her share a little bit more about her story, and then we're going to chat.
Okay. Hey, Shelby, thanks so much for having me on today. And hey to all you sober women out there. I'm glad I get to share my story with you. My story definitely connects to all of you. I suffered trauma in my preteen years and never took care of it. So everything from that point forward was done in a convoluted way. And I did not realize that that's what I was doing. I dealt with things like disassociation. I dealt with things like people pleasing. I never wanted to say no to anyone. And that actually did become an addiction to me. I don't think I hardly ever said no to anyone. I just wanted everyone to be happy with me. And that related totally back to my trauma. When I was 11, I was assaulted by some boys in my hometown and people I knew. I grew up in a town of 500, so everyone knew everybody. And after the incident, I went home, talked to my mom about it, and she told me to stay quiet and that if I talked about it, if we turned it in, people would think that I was bad, not my perpetrators. And this was back in the 70s. So that really was the truth. And she was just trying to protect me. I realize that now as an adult. As a little girl, I really didn't realize that. And that really shaped who I became, who I was as a young adult and a young wife, mother, and led me to doing some things that I am not proud of at all. Some very poor choices, and that led me to federal prison, which is where I started healing, where I started dealing with both my people pleasing addiction, my trauma, and I took some great classes through RDAP, which is the residential treatment program that they have in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. And that opened my eyes to a lot of different things that I could change in my life to make me be a better person.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for starting us off with such a vulnerable share. Um, it's so raw, even though we work on the parts of us that have been damaged from a lot of things. Sometimes when we, still say those words or we share them out loud in public or with, even in privately, it can feel really vulnerable and raw. Um, and I don't think it's probably going to be an unusual experience for many people who are listening because, like you mentioned, that time period. Now, I feel like every generation has some of its own challenges, but in those different generations, we didn't have a lot of the resources that we have today specifically around mental health or abuse or, you know, um, how to talk, how to share those kinds of things. And so there was a lot of stigma around that, right? And
Exactly.
so it sounds to me like, and correct me if I'm wrong, like your mom, was trying to validate you and comfort you and deal with you as best she could as a mom and just but missed the boat, right? On the kind of
Exactly.
like, oh gosh, like this is not okay. And was concerned. I mean, hopefully, I think for you, right? Or for the whole family or for everybody and how the community would handle that. And that's like it's like a secondary trauma, we would call
It
that,
is.
you know, um, and can be just as damaging because it feels invalidating. And whatever the reasons were that they made those decisions at that time, it still feels really hurtful.
It does. It does. And what stuck out for me, Shelby, was the word bad. And I didn't hear would think bad. I heard bad. So that kind of became my mantra.
Hmm.
I am bad. I let what happened to me happen, which I know now is not the truth. But I kept shoving things under the rug as we say, and my rug got a really big lump in the middle of it. And again, led me to some very poor choices involving people pleasing, involving criminal activity, things that I never thought that I would do as an adult, as a person. My, moral background was not that. And it was very difficult. And I think my changing moment was the day that I woke up one morning and I knew I had to take care of it. And there were several options on that day. One of them, and I tell this story, and it still hurts to tell this story.
Mm.
No matter how many times I tell it, it was either to use the gun in my husband's closet or to turn myself in. And the reason I think I chose to turn myself in was not for myself, but for my children. I
Mm.
wanted them to know the true story, the full story. And if I wasn't here to tell it, who was going to?
Right.
And so that is why I was led to turn myself in. And again, prison for me became a healing journey.
Mm.
It's the first time I focused on me, first time I faced what happened to me, first time I faced the facts that I did have some addiction issues. They might not have been a substance
Mhm.
addiction, but it was to making other people happy and also hiding my trauma. And I
Mhm.
think that almost even became a form of an addiction. So I had to find ways to overcome that and become a better person. And that's why I founded Connecting to Cope, is to help others as well.
Oh man, that's amazing. It is wild when we arrive at those turning points, right? Those like before and after moments. And I always say, if you live long enough, you probably have more than one of those times in your life. And they're jumping off place, right? Where we get to decide, which fork we're going to take. I'm curious if you would be willing to say, I do want to talk a little bit more about kind of that part and after, but just for us to know a little bit more about what that looked like for you and kind of like a, abbreviated, fast way. How did you get from like age 11? What was going on for you? Obviously, that's adolescence is coming in. We know that developmentally, that's just a difficult stage anyway. There's a lot going on into kind of young adulthood that kind of what was going on? What was going on for you? We know the core event, but then how did that start to show up as dysfunction in your life that led you to some of these choices?
Um, that's a great question, Shelby. And I think I've thought about it and dealt with it in, trauma work and recovery work, but I don't think I've ever voiced it to anyone but my therapist, which I'm glad to share with all of you.
Right, only what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, no, no, it's fine. It's fine. I really have become, Shelby, an open book, because if I can help someone else, that's what I want to
Mhm.
do. It came out as perfection. I wanted to be perfect. I never felt that I was good enough. It dealt, again, I mean, I keep bringing up people pleasing, and I never wanted to displease anyone. And when really the person that I was most displeasing to, I now know, was myself.
Mhm.
And I also had substance addiction in my family. My sister was an alcoholic, and my father was addicted to Valium. He was in World War II. So I saw the addiction firsthand. And if there was any saving grace to that, I think it was that I tried to be strong enough to never go there. Because in my head, I knew if I ever let myself go there, that that would be the medicine that I chose, that that would be the way I dealt with what was going on in my head. But how I got from 11 to today, real quickly, is graduated high school, went to college, met my husband, got married, had two kids, did all the normal things on the outside, right? But on the inside, I was disassociating all the time. There's days in my life where I do not remember. And the closer I got to imprisonment and the closer I got to actually committing my crime, the worse the disassociation became. So
Mhm.
my coping skill was not healthy. It was disassociation, amnesiatic disassociation,
Mhm.
times in my life that I really don't remember.
So when you say perfectionism, I mean, I can relate to that too. I was the girl that was never pretty enough, skinny enough, smart enough, or
Exactly.
any group I was in. So I get that. So is that what that looked like for you? So like in those growing up years, you were just constantly striving to be like the best at school, the best in your sport, the best in your community, all the thing, go to the best college, do the thing, is that what that looked like for you? Is it
It
something
it did.
else?
It did, Shelby, because if I could fool all them, because I knew in my head I was bad, remember
Right.
that's the mantra I had. If I could fool everybody else, at least I had that facade going. And
Mhm.
again, wanted to have the best boyfriend, wanted to be the prettiest girl, wanted to have the 4.0. And if I didn't do that, I would beat myself up for it. And
Mm,
yeah, I get that, the whole perfectionism thing. It's
yeah.
tough.
So when you say beat yourself up, was it like negative self-talk, like obviously I'm bad? Was it, was there other like themes for you around that? And when
Yeah,
did you see that?
definitely negative thinking, and that carried on through my work life, through my professional life. If I would get a job, get a promotion, on the outside, I'd be like, "Yeah, I got this." On the inside, I'd be saying to myself, "You did not deserve this." So you
Mm-hmm.
would self-sabotage,
Mm-hmm.
and before they would find out how bad I was, I would quit and move on to a different position.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a lot of moving around in my professional life. Um, Fortunately, I have a very good man in my life. My husband has been,
Mm-hmm.
we've been married for almost 38 years, and he knows when I'm self-sabotaging, and he knows when I go there. So I have had that as a coping skill as well.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I can totally relate to that too. I've shared a lot of that. The negative thinking patterns that we develop as part of our trauma narrative are usually alive and well. And it sounds like for you, like really, people pleasing, but also that perfectionism really became your drug of choice. And that's no different than
Yes.
kind of like workaholism later in life. I mean, that shows up in a lot of ways. It can definitely be that dopamine hit that we all kind of
Yep.
are looking for when we use substances too, which, we're looking for the dopamine hit, but we're also trying to numb out. So it's a little interesting dynamic there. Um, so so you were able to kind of get through your life. You were married, you had two children, and when did you feel like things, I mean, obviously, you had these patterns prior, and it was showing up for you, and I'm sure creating problems in your relationships and difficulty doing a lot of things. But when did you start to really notice things were starting to kind of go? Was there like a tipping point when things were starting to really go downhill, or was it just
It
one
is.
big crash? Or
It wasn't a big crash. Um, but one of the turning points in my life is one of my perpetrators, back when I was 11, married into my family.
oh,
And so I
wow.
had to see him all the time. So if you want to see the disassociation queen, you're looking at her. I
Oh,
was so
wow.
good at family events as being there physically, but mentally I was non-present. I
Mm,
felt like I was watching the whole scenario above the table or sitting back in a corner when really I was there,
mm,
and actually participating in conversations and not even remembering afterwards. So that was one of them. Um, the other tipping point was this gentleman continued his actions he did to me, um, and he continued them with my family member. She contracted cancer and ended up passing away.
mm.
And there's a long, convoluted story about that. I don't
Mhm.
like to share her story because it's really
Sure.
not mine to share.
Hmm.
But I will tell you that that was my spiraling moment. That is when I started um, more illegal activity. I was involved in some before, with selling illegal tickets is what I sold. And that's really when I spiraled. I wanted
Mm,
to please everyone. I ran into a point where I couldn't cover what I was selling anymore for refunds. And I could have kept going. But again, I woke up that morning and it was a few years after she had passed, and I couldn't do it anymore. It was either A, I'm done with this, or B, I'm done with this. And I didn't know what avenue I was going to take.
right, right.
So
Wow. Yeah, sorry for your loss, but I can definitely see how, gosh, how difficult that would make life, you know? I mean, that's just, you're just, not only are you just reopening the wound, right? And kind of pouring salt in it, like by having this person back into your life, there's also an element, like we mentioned before, kind of like, invalidation of your experience of trauma by kind of the welcoming in of perpetrators. Like we see this a
Exactly.
lot with
Exactly.
other kinds of abuse and things. And when people are accepting, you're like, oh, that was in the past, or oh, this person, they've changed, or whatever people say. Even if they have, like say somebody has been rehabilitated and they're like this whole new person,
Oh,
like
and I'm
okay,
all about that. We all get second
and
chances.
okay, fine. That's fine. But that doesn't mean that for you as the victim of that assault or abuse, that it's not going to reopen and re-trigger all of those experiences. So when that happened, when like that person kind of re-walked into your life, is that when you started? I'm sorry, you mentioned you were selling illegal tickets. I don't even know what that means. Is it
Well,
like,
it's secondary tickets, and I was doing it legally first and got involved with the group that was doing it illegally.
what do you
And
mean secondary tickets? Like you want to go to a concert and
yep,
you buy them
yep.
from like the concert venue and then you sell them on SeatGeek?
Um, yes, but the group that I got involved with would sell tickets pre-event, and they'd sell 4 tickets
Oh.
and they had and refund money and use the money as we were going. And so,
Okay.
yeah, and so I got charged with mail fraud is what the US government charged me with.
So did that process for you start before you met that before this person re-entered your life and you kind of went down that spiral, or
No,
was it
no,
already
it
happening?
was after. It was more when my family member got sick is when it really escalated.
Okay.
Yeah, because I felt
Interesting.
responsible. If I could have stopped this person, and there's more to the cancer, more to the whole story, and
Yeah,
it's
sure.
not my story
Sure.
to tell.
Yeah.
I can tell you my part.
Yeah.
And my part is that I felt responsible for the things that were happening to her. And some of my family members knew and understood, some, did not understand. And so that was
Mm,
that was part of it as well. And I've done a lot of healing from all of that. And
sure.
again, the addiction portion comes in.
Yeah.
If and I don't know where I got the strength from, Shelby, to not use, because that would have been an easy answer. Truly.
Yes.
I mean, I talked in prison in RDAP and all the things. They're all like, how did you just not go down that path? And I'm like, I wish I could tell you that I knew. It was just inner strength. So I did other things to compensate.
Right. Well, you were, I mean, and this is sort of like it's very, very similar to things like gambling or other things. Like if you were doing that, it reminds me of there was a movie, I don't remember, where the people were doing the coupons. Did you see that?
I did not see that.
I think it was fiction. I think
Okay.
I don't remember exactly, but this woman got involved. She was in a horrible, unhappy marriage. I have to look it up. Shoot, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
She was in an unhappy marriage and it just wasn't going well. And there was trauma. Like it turns out later they show like I think they either lost a baby or they wanted to have a baby, they couldn't, so they had this like nursery set up and different things, and it was clearly unhealed stuff. So she got involved. She was always into like saving. And so she got involved in like couponing, but it became like extreme couponing. And then it entered into this kind of what you're saying, something where they would mail in to get rebates, or I don't really know exactly.
Oh,
But
maybe
she
I
was,
do because I think, yeah, I think I do. I don't remember the
I
name
can't
either.
remember it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
she was doing it. It was, I mean, they were making, and then this other woman got involved with her. They were like neighbors or something, and they were making like bank. I mean, like
Yeah, and I
money
wish I
was
could tell you
just
that I did make bank.
coming in.
I just tried to fix it. So and I shouldn't say that I wish I made bank because I don't,
I
but
know what
I
you mean.
did. I tried to fix it, and that's really where I started my illegal activity, is when I tried to fix. We're fixers, women are
Absolutely.
fixers.
Well, and
And
we want to
when I,
cover up, part of
yep.
it, that addiction process, and it's very, I mean,
Oh yeah.
I'm a master of this too. Like I'm the mistake maker in my family. So, my husband is perfect, and I'm the mistake maker. So like whenever things happen, like I scratch my car or I run over something or I got a ticket or I broke something, I would always have some kind of sketchy way. Like I would get this like black permanent marker and be out there like fixing it, or
Oh
like,
yeah.
like to try to cover up, and that was even in sobriety, right? I was doing a lot of that stuff in my active addiction, but even in sobriety, like as a way to try to just get out of, to not have to face the truth, to not have to speak up and say I was wrong because of the nature of our relationship. And it's just the way it was my own fault. I mean, it was me, my
Oh, I get it.
inability.
I'm there too, and
Hmm.
I work on those actions still every day, and
I
I think that
know.
that's something of with someone who's had trauma or who has had addiction issues or has had, different things. We still want to go back to that, and that's
Yes.
when the pillars of your recovery come into play.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I do think that still, whenever a thing happens, I mean, my natural way is to get out of it, like to get away. Like that is always gonna probably be my first thought or my first line of defense. Like I want to figure out how I can fix this without anybody finding out or knowing. Now, the process of going through that now to me is now in like seconds to minutes. It's very quick, but that took 25 years, like a long time. So like now I can see that happening and I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. I'm going to have to just face the music and deal with the consequences or whatever. But I think because we all just know the pain, so much pain of consequences that our natural way is to want to get away, numb away, disassociate, stop the thing, right? So I can't tell you the number of things I've covered up. And also the number of times, including in my decades long recovery, where I have seen my husband find things and experience him having to go through that again, which is uh, pretty awful. I'm not gonna
Oh,
lie.
I know. I often think of that as well. And so I know exactly where you're coming from. And the minute something that I do that I still deal with in my recovery is the minute my husband asks me a question, just even an innocent question, I can become defensive.
Yeah.
And so if I become defensive, then what does he do? Then he comes back and says, "Okay, what's going on here? Why are you acting this way?"
Yeah.
And so that's just all part of our trauma, our past, what we had to deal with, I believe anyway, to get through, and going back to old patterns is way easy sometimes.
Well, like I said, I just think it is going to be our natural way, just like my natural way, and most of the people who I know who have substance abuse addiction, their natural resources to drink and use. Like that's
Yeah.
going to be the first thing they think of. Doesn't mean I'm ever going to do it. Just means that's what I would rather be doing. You know,
Yes.
that's what I would rather be doing to solve this problem right now. But thank God, I've worked a program that helps me understand that that is absolutely not going to be appropriate, and also done all the trauma work, like much like you have. But and it gets better, it gets so much better,
And
and you start to get like the relief and the peace comes, I think, later on when you don't do that. Like when we start to realize like where I am today is, oh my gosh, like the easier, softer way truly is to just do the next right thing, to
exactly.
be honest, to fess up, to feel the feelings. That is where my peace comes from. It's uncomfortable. Of course it is. Nobody likes that. But it is it's with where the peace is.
Well, and it's going to be easier down the road. You have to pay the piper, I guess, at the minute you make your mistake, because we all make mistakes every day. And facing up to that is difficult at the time, but having to cover that other mistake, to cover the other mistake, to cover the other mistake is much more difficult, and just leads you back to the road that you don't want to be on anymore. And
I mean,
that's
it's
how I try to
exhausting.
live it. Yes,
It's exhausting.
it
I
is.
think back and I'm like, I honestly don't even know. I mean, I'm old now, but like, I
Me
don't know
too.
how I did it. I don't even know how I did that because it is a lot to keep up with, even if it's only like small things, but like just your mind constantly having to be like on with the thing and oh my gosh, I feel like I'm just so grateful for so many things, but for one of those things is to just I don't have to manage any of that in my life. I'm just here. I'm just here. Who I am. I just show up and kind of take the day as it goes, and that's the thing. I'm curious for you though about you had children when I have
Yes,
three children as well. They're young adults now, but I didn't have any kids when until I got so until after I was sober for 5 years. Oh no, until I got sober and 6 months later I got pregnant and I had three kids in 4 years. So my kids have never seen me drink, but I was still that wasn't I don't recommend that. But your kids were around when you were going through this and also when you went to jail. So like what was that like?
it was very difficult.
Oh,
So my boys were, when I turned myself in, my youngest son was 16, my oldest son was 18.
wow.
And yeah, they're 2 years apart too. And I will tell you, my boys are my biggest fans, but also my biggest critics.
Yeah.
They're probably harder on me in my life at this point than anybody else, and I allow them to be. Um, I'm very fortunate, and I read somewhere and also learned in therapy, like in cognitive behavioral therapy, and I went through some therapy for disassociation, and
Mhm.
that we tend to be, as someone who disassociates, some of the best parents, quote unquote, but we also tend to overparent, making sure they are strong individuals, because you probably know in the back of your head at some point they're going to have to deal with your actions, or my actions. And so I believe I raised very strong men, and in fact I know on this day today that I do have very strong, wonderful men that I am proud to be the parent of. But it was tough on them, and of
Yeah.
course it's changed their life. And I'm just fortunate, so happy that they have taken such great roads. Very responsible men, both fathers themselves now. They're 30 and
Mm,
32. And I'm a grandma 4 times, which is the best title I have ever had, by the way.
yes.
Um, and I am so fortunate and so grateful that I get to be a part of everybody's lives, and that I am still on this healing journey. But
Mm,
again, my biggest critics, if they think I am going off the straight and narrow, they will be the first people to jump on me and say, "What is going on?"
yeah.
And some days I get angry about that, because sometimes I think they're too critical. But then other days I am so thankful and grateful for it. So I've got a
Yeah.
great, lucky to have a great relationship with my boys, I guess, is the end of it.
It's a humbling experience though, right?
Oh,
It is
yes.
like I think one of the greatest of humility. Um when when you live in a home with everybody, I don't care what kind of lifestyle you have or whatever it is, those kids, they know what's up, generally speaking. They might not
Oh,
know
yeah.
every single thing, but they hear things, they're listening, they feel the energy in the home. So they pick up all of the stuff that we're putting down. And most of the time, I have this lovely woman I'm working with in my practice right now. I love her. I've had the pleasure of working with some I work with a lot of addicts. A lot of them are in recovery. Some are still trying. And this one is definitely still trying. And she came to me wanting to get sober and all the things, and we've been working together for kind of a while, and it's we're just we're still trying to work through it.
Yeah.
She's just not kind of just she just isn't ready, I guess, to commit. But we first started, she's got all these kids, a bunch of kids. She has like some kids that are older from a previous marriage, I think like three or four, and then two that are like in high school age from her current husband.
Okay.
And she's like, oh, but like nobody knows that I drink or whatever. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? I was like, I'm sorry, like why do you think that? And she's like, oh, I just, I do it privately. I'm in the garage or I'm in the basement or after. I'm like, I, I'm pretty sure they probably know. They're in high school. Like they know their mom smells like alcohol.
Yeah.
They know that you're passed out on the couch by 8 o'clock. I mean, like, I don't understand how you could live in a home with your children who are school age and they don't know you're drinking. So anyway, that my only point is they always know what's going on. They may not know all the things. They don't know everything that goes on between you and your husband behind closed doors and what conversations are happening, but they know a thing.
Oh,
And
they do. They know something's
yeah,
going on. And we all talk about doing what we do. I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm a coach. I've taken some coaching classes because of my past. I feel I can help
Mhm,
people. And so that's what I try to do. But what I do want to tell anybody who is out there listening who is having a difficult time, with children, whether they're young children, adult children, is that I believe children are the most forgiving people out there. Just as we're forgiving to them, they are forgiving to you if you start being straight with them. And if they see that you have an issue, work on that issue, find out what they're thinking and take their advice under consideration. And does that mean that's going to happen tomorrow and things are going to be fixed tomorrow? Definitely not. It takes small steps and it takes patience on both sides. And some
mhm,
days your child might not be patient with you, but you just have to walk away and say, okay, we tried today. Maybe we took a step backwards today.
mhm,
Maybe we took a step forward. But hopefully, those relationships can be mended. They may never be the same. They may be better.
mhm,
My boys now, I feel my relationship with my boys is better than it ever has been, partly because they're adults and partly because we do, have this common bond.
mhm,
And that is my trauma. And they know what happened. And they also tell me it's not a crutch you can live with, but it's something you have to live with every day. And
mhm.
so that's kind of the basis of our relationship. And I'm so grateful for them. So people out there, if you're having issues with your kids, it can be mended. It just takes
Mhm,
work and it might not happen in a second. Be
mhm.
patient. So,
Yeah, the reason I brought it up too is I think that because you said that they're the hardest on you, it's because is my point was is that they grew up hearing and seeing and things that
yep,
only your people know in your home. Like only the people that are in this family in this home know all of the things that have gone on. And so when you're in that kind of an intimate relationship, they do have the opportunity to kind of come up and be like, dude, I see what you're doing here, or
yep,
why are you going out with that girl? Or what's going on with this?
yep.
They do get to do that, and I think it's kind of cool. But it's also super humbling when you get kind of
Oh,
told
yeah.
out by your child because you're like, I'm an adult. But I'm like, but we're not void of um, mistakes or wrong thinking, and we need to be righted by someone. So what better people than your sons? I mean, it's so cool.
Oh,
So.
yeah. And now since I've had kids of their own too, they're like, boy, this isn't always easy. No, it's not always easy,
Right. Well,
and
I think that's the best thing. I'm
it
not
is.
there yet, but I can totally understand. Like I remember my mom saying things like that, and just
Yep.
I get it now because I'm like, oh my gosh, like, or I'll say, you wait, 'cause my kids make fun of me a lot because I'm like kind of I'm emotional, like and they're 20, almost 22, 20 and 17, so I have two in college and one's a senior, and so we're going through all the emotions of just them transitioning and being gone. I miss them every single day, my girls and my son even because he's older and I'm just emotional about it. And some days are really emotional, and I get all kind of crazy in here and they're like, oh, they make fun of me or whatever. And I'm like, you wait, like you don't know. You have no idea what it's like to have people that are with you for their whole life and then they just leave, you know? And it's funny, it's fun. We get it. But
Yeah, yeah, we do.
so anyway, what are some of the things that one of the things that you talked about that's really near and dear to my heart too is negative thinking patterns, and we work a lot with that in my practice and in the coaching work I've done too. Really surrounds really identifying those negative thinking patterns and then identifying the triggers for that, like what is happening right before that. Like really starting to hone in on, oh, when my husband gives me that look, or when I get a phone call from the school or my boss calls me into the office, those things that really trigger those negative beliefs and thinking in yourself. And then we really figure out kind of, okay, is it like rational or irrational? And then how can we deal with that part and reverse it or accept it? So it's like a thought inventory. So I'm kind of curious, like what that's been like for you. How have you been able to really get a handle on your negative thinking patterns and kind of heal that part and rewrite those narratives?
Well, yeah, you do. You rewrite who you are in your brain and you rewrite your core values. Even though I think they always are there, you let them back into be who you are. And again, I talk about RDAP when I was incarcerated, and we would do the rational um, evaluations. We called them RSAs, so that in your head, in about, a millisecond, you can take the two different things you're face or the thing you're facing and the two different ways that you could go, the bad way. Okay, I am bad. So why don't I just do the things that are expected of me because I'm bad? And then what's going to happen if I do that? Um, or take the way that I am, that I work on living with every day and say if I take the right path, it may be a little more difficult. It may be more difficult at this point, but these are the emotions I'm going to feel. And this could possibly be the outcome. And it's a much better outcome than taking the bad path. I know that's kind of, I'm talking in a circle, but really that's what you do. It's a millisecond of your brain thinking, if I go this way, it's going to have these consequences. And if I go this way, it's going to be another. And so that's really what I do, and in order to do that, transforming, the things I do on a daily basis, journaling, taking time for myself, finding time to talk with my husband, finding time to read a book or play a round of Candy Crush or whatever it is that I use as a coping skill to keep my head on straight, literally.
Yeah. We call that like playing the tape forward, like playing
Yep.
the whole tape. Like, think, oh yeah, okay, let's think let's think about that choice, like, and then this is going to happen, then this, then this, then this, all the way till the end. And even if it's not a choice of like something that's going to be harmful to someone or break the law or something, but really just a choice in yourself, like, well, how is this going to be helpful for
Oh,
me?
yeah.
Or what is this going to lead me to? And that's how we can really, begin to understand how those patterns work and then insert the tools we need to begin to reverse them. And one of the things that we talked about is utilizing things like EMDR, which is the kind of therapy that I utilize in my practice. It's near and dear to my heart. I love it so, so much. I know that it's incredibly effective, much faster than traditional talk therapy, and truly the only way we have to heal the brain at the molecular level. And so I know you utilize that
I
sort
do.
of therapy in your life, and I'd just love to hear just maybe like the kind of quick plug for, what that's been like for you.
Well, I started out and I think that starting out with the CBT, the art apps, the RSAs, those type of things helped me identify where my trauma sat. But the EMDR helped me release my trauma. Does that make sense? I could talk about it. I remember things in EMDR that I never thought I had the ability to remember, and where my brain takes me when I am going through a session is amazing. And again, it's helped me release the shame, the guilt, the the things I've done since my trauma and the things that happened during my trauma. I hadn't been able to read a book for years
Mm.
before I started EMDR. I hadn't been able to concentrate long enough. And I can now sit down and read a book. I can watch a TV show. I don't have my brain going a million miles a minute all the time because so many things, again, have my guilt, my shame. And not that I am not regretful for all of my behaviors illegally, people I've hurt, but it's allowed me to deal with them. Does that make sense to you?
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I that's exactly what it is. I mean, it basically is a magic wand for healing the neural pathways that were created way back from those original core events and created those negative beliefs that then stick with us and then get like the pathways get carved even further as we have
Yep.
new experiences like I'm bad, or I'm not good enough, I'm bad, I'm not, we carve them even further and further and further. So yeah, that's why. I mean, EMDR is such a miracle. I also utilize remote neurofeedback and offer that program in my practice as well, which is amazing because it's not under licensure yet, so I'm sure someday it will be, but we can utilize it across state lines.
Yep.
It's also you can do it at home, so it's so nice. So we set up all the program after we do that brain map, and then you basically do all that training at home, and it's just phenomenal what we are learning over the last 10 years, specifically in brain research, even though those two modalities have been around way longer. But we just get more and more information. And, you know, I think the message from both of us is that, it isn't your fault what happened to you, but it certainly is your responsibility to take
It
control of your
is.
feeling. And both of us are doing that. And really anybody can. So, there comes a time for all of us when we have to really take responsibility for that. We have to stop blaming our parents or stop blaming our abusers or stop blaming our schools or our community or our country or whatever system and start saying, I'm going to take control of this and, do what I can to heal the parts of me that are damaged. So,
I agree, Shelby. I agree.
yeah. So tell us just real quick, like what you're doing in your work, with connecting to cope and where people can get a hold of you if they want to.
Sure. I founded Connecting to Cope exactly for the reasons we spoke about today, to help people. When I was incarcerated, I found out how many people were damaged by trauma. I didn't realize that. Sometimes you think you're that lone wolf out there, and when you talk to other people, you find out. And so many people don't have the ability to get help, they don't have the wherewithal to get help. And so that's why Connecting to Cope started. Connecting to Cope is named for my best coping skill ever. He is my golden doodle, and his name is Cope. And he is just a great guy. He listens to me. He never judges me. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Once in a while, I get a look when I'm walking out the door, so I do get judged occasionally. But he is a great asset to me. And I have a website, www.connectingtocope.com. I've got some blogs, some podcasts, some different items on there. I do coaching, both trauma related, and I've started to do some caregiver coaching as well because I take care of my uncle. And so I've taken some classes on that. And anybody out there who has questions, who has been incarcerated, who has suffered trauma, is welcome to get a hold of me, and I'd be glad to try to help you.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I'll make sure I link to those things in the show notes below so people can get
Okay.
a hold of you. And I just really appreciate your time and your honesty and vulnerability here. Um, I think it's going to be really impactful with the whole community. So thank you again for being here.
Oh, well, thanks for having me, Shelby. It was very enjoyable to speak to you and find out about your past as well. And I'm glad to hear another gal who believes in EMDR. So,
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay, I hope you have a fantastic day and that our paths cross again soon.